You guys know I would lose at the silent game. Between the three of us.
Oh, absolutely. It's killing you.
You're going to, yeah.
Is that what we're doing? Like you have to.
I don't know what we're doing.
Well,
Because
I'm the champion of it with my kids. That's all I can say. So.
I will absolutely lose this game with you two every time. So I'm just going to forfeit right up front. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 714 Friday edition. We're glad that you're here. I'm the one that talks a lot. So that's why I'm talking.
We love that about you, though. We love that. You always have wonderful things. You have plenty of wonderful things to say. And then there's also plenty of things that we can also, maybe rib you a little bit about because you're yeah.
It's
I just
good.
noticed. Okay, so just real quick, because I'm going to go ahead and humble myself for just a moment and point something out. I spelled my name wrong. If anybody notices that. So,
dude, that's amazing.
I didn't catch that.
I just seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What?
So I'm changing it as we speak. That's a little bit embarrassing right there. I'll just go ahead and own that though.
Hey, usually I catch that stuff. I didn't even see it. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Good for you to man up and be like,
I mean, it is my last name and somehow I still managed to spell it wrong. So there we go. All right.
Well, I don't even see a name for me. So I guess I'm just,
we're just kind of here. We're just showing up.
I don't have a name. I'm no name. So at least you made an effort, Nate,
Yeah.
So
this Friday, it's kind of up in the air what's going to happen here on this Friday edition of 714.
Yeah.
Jason's in his vehicle, drinking a little bit of coffee still getting things going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dreaming about cooler weather. That's what I got my Lake Superior mug today.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a great question. Are you a cooler weather guy? Do you like what is it?
I am such a cooler weather guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like my ideal temperature would be like if every day was 70 degrees, maybe 68. But if every day was 70 degrees, it would be like there's nothing better than that. As far as
So fall right now we're entering into your this is my season. Or are you more like winter guy?
I like winter too. So I like both, but I'm a weirdo in that way. My dream, and if my wife's watching, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this because she told me to quit saying this. But like, if I could go to the snow cap or again up to the Upper Peninsula, I live in Michigan, so if I would go to the Upper Peninsula in the winter and literally just spend an entire winter in a cabin where I could only heat it with burning wood and it was primitive. That is the most incredible scenario imaginable.
That's like you're like the Ron Swanson dream there. That's what you're.
Yeah.
It's 40 days in, I think that might change pretty. Like the idea, like this is wonderful. Like
it is, and it's like I love people too. So it's like a catch-22. I want everybody to love that. Why don't we all love going up and being freezing? And why don't everybody? And most people are like, no, I'm out on that. So
I would be good with it. I would be good with it as long as I knew DoorDash was there. They can reach that.
Yeah.
Maybe Netflix. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have to kill my food just to enjoy.
Right.
Go out and rough it. I mean, I can, but
it's weird because it's not, even for me, it's like not a rough it thing. It's more just like a wet. I love that weather. Like I want all the amenities, of course. I'm like you. Like if I got a refrigerator stocked full and everything, I'm good. But like just the snow outside, the cool weather.
No.
Now, are you guys warm weather guys, or what would you say you are? Nate, what are you?
Yeah. I'm the 70 range guy. Like that would be my perfect. Absolutely. Fall would be my fate. Fall and spring are probably a toss up. I like I really enjoy fall. I like it when it starts to get a little bit grayer, as the fall is going, when it starts to get a little bit grayer. But then I also like it when it starts to get a little bit brighter when the sun comes back. I'm also a big fan when the sun comes back. So yeah. That's where I'm at.
Awesome. You don't complain when you live in Michigan, though. I can tell you guys that. You don't complain because summer, it's like it gets to, you get the 80s. We get an occasional 90s in Michigan, but otherwise, you don't complain though. You just because
it's coming.
6 months out of the year, it's cold here. So
It's like come back in summer when it's nice, and then
Right.
yeah.
All right. All right. Well, here we go.
We're doing this. We're in
Right.
we're in Edgerton. We're in Revelation. I said
Yeah.
I almost said we're in Edgerton.
That wasn't like a Freudian slip or anything. There was nothing there.
There's
Nothing
no.
there, anybody.
Yeah. We're in Revelation 18. We didn't get through the whole thing yesterday because there was a lot here. So
Yeah.
what did you say, Nate? We got through verse 8 yesterday.
I think we got through verse 8. Yeah, we're picking up in verse 9. We're kind of you had some headings that we were kind of going off of, because if we would have just went straight through, it was a lot to take in. There's a lot being said. Maybe a little bit overwhelming if you ever sat down and just read through these several chapters in Revelation, and you never just stop to really just ponder in the midst of all of that. It's a lot. There's a lot of imagery that just blows your mind. It can feel pretty heavy. So we just wanted to break it down a little bit and work through that. And really great. I'm still kind of buzzing from that conversation we had yesterday, and it was good. And so
that was really I mean,
so here we are. We're getting ready to. There's been all these warnings. There's been all these things that have taken place. The build up to this place. And Jason, you said, and we'll just keep saying it as we're finishing up in Revelation, because we don't have that much further to go. But it's just been this constant buildup of opportunity to return back to God, to realize that you have been far off, that you've been going in the wrong direction. And this is your opportunity to come. And all of these things have taken place. So many different things that we've read through all of Revelation that begins to bring to this point where the bowls have been poured out. The bowls of God's wrath have been poured out. And still in the midst, after the bowls have been poured out, God is still offering opportunity for people to return to him. And we just got done. We've been in the midst of talking about the fall of Babylon. And this is where we're really beginning to, I don't know, we're just going to get through this. If you're ready, let's do it. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. So verse 9 reads this: when the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry, woe, woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon. In 1 hour your doom has come. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple silk and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, marble, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, cargoes and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. They will say, the fruit you longed for is gone from you. All your luxury and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn and cry out, woe, woe to you, great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold and precious stones and pearls. In one such hour, such great wealth has been brought to ruin. So I can keep reading though. Let me finish this up. I'm almost there. Yes. So in 1 hour, such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Every sea captain, all who travel by ship, and the sailors, and all who earn their living from the sea will stand far off. When they see the smoke of her burning, they will exclaim, was there ever a city like this great city? They will throw dust on their heads with weeping and mourning and cry out, woe, woe to you, great city, where all the who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour, she has been brought to great ruin. Rejoice over her, you heavens. Rejoice, you people of God. Rejoice, apostles and prophets, for God has judged her with the judgment she imposed on you. The three woes over Babylon's fall.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've heard this described a few different ways. And I think it's interesting. Number one, the city side of things. When you hear a city, automatically, I think like, like New York City or
Mhm.
some city with like great, a tremendous amount of merchandise flowing through it, an opportunity, city of all these things. But I've heard someone describe this as more like a system, and
Mhm.
it just again this system that has been created when you're talking about the people on the seas that used to fish the seas, and they found their they made a living by doing these things, and all of the weeping and regret around it. Like, I don't know how you look at it, or what you would assume it is, whether it's an actual physical city, or if it really is some kind of a construct in some way that we have literally woven ourselves into to find our provision in life. That would be the best way I could try to explain it. So, like provision, when you think about your job and your career and all these things, like I mentioned yesterday, like there was a time when I put a lot of stock in my education because I thought it was all building a wall around my life that would provide safety and provision and all these things for me, and safety from trouble and everything. But the truth is that many people are going to be deceived by that. Again, you could think stock. I've heard people say stock market, 401k, whatever it is. I mean, again, none of those, like, all when you're thinking about those things, I don't necessarily think any of those things on their own are negative.
Right.
It's just simply that what the world has done up to this point is we have found our provision, we've put our hope, we've put our trust, we've put our love, we've put our energy into pouring into this system, which poured back to us to some degree. It took care of us to some degree, but in the end, we're going to find out all of those things are counterfeit.
Yep.
That rug will be jerked out from underneath us at this point, or whoever. Again, when you're talking about these people, that's the imagery or the concept here is all those things that you found your provision in are going to be jerked out from underneath you, and you're going to be talking about the greatness of that system and the greatness of what it provided. But the truth is, you're going to find out it was sand in the end, and we kind of alluded to that yesterday. It's just it wasn't going to hold up in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I through a lot of this, I just see that contrast between God and his provision and his kingdom and his ways versus that of the world. And what we're seeing, obviously there's pictures of Babylon. There's the reality of the city of Babylon from the very beginning and the nation that rose up and then destroyed. But here we're seeing it's just full scale, it's just broad, and it's this, whether it is a system or a city it's reached to the ends of the earth, because we're seeing this effect take place all over. And so God bringing that distinction about, it's everything we could want as humans that we think would fulfill us is here. And yet we find it's empty, and it's not actually providing what we actually need.
Right.
Yeah.
God's bringing that all to ruin and saying, I am the provider. I am the one who brings, true peace, joy, happiness, all of that. This is false, and he's revealing that to them.
But I love the fact that they go to such an extent to this long list of things that they put out there that they describe. Just so you said, everything covers the gamut of the things that we believe that will fulfill us, and leaving no stone unturned when it comes to that. And it's, once again, it's not like this is a brand new thing. It's not like the world should be surprised when all this stuff is here. I mean, this is the stuff that God was trying to share with us from the very beginning. This is the stuff that Jesus talked about, when he talked about storing up our treasures in heaven, because the things of this world are going to the moths are going to eat it away. They're going to rust out, and it's not going to be there when it's all said and done. These things are going to fail us. And once again, it comes back to that idea that when Jason says it, when we have our hope and our trust in those things, like that's when it's inevitable. It's going to fail us, and we are going to fall flat on our face. And yeah. And all he's asking for us to do is put our trust in him and fall into his arms when all that stuff falls apart and goes away,
Yeah.
When you guys were saying that, both you guys, what you said there, it made me think about the creation story again. When you think, because remember, this is the whole concept in the revelation of Jesus, is that God is restoring us back to his original intent for creation. And so when you go all the way back to the creation story, you hear it just in the dialogue between God and people, right? When Adam and Eve had sinned, when sin had entered and they had made the choice to choose the apple, what did they do? They clothed themselves with fig leaves. And God, he said, "Where are you?" Right? Remember in that story, he said, "Where are you?" And we're hiding from you, and because we're ashamed, because we're naked. And he asked him, "Who told you were naked?" Again, and so when you think about that with regards to these things, like, who told you needed that big house that you thought you needed, that was going to be fulfillment? Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a big house. Make sure we're on the same page. But what I'm saying is, who told you that was going to fulfill you? Who told you that you were naked or that you were without something? Who told you that you needed that thing, that whatever that thing is, that career, that pursuit, that education, that next degree? None of those things are bad on their own, but where they become a stumbling block for us is when we see ourselves as naked without them. When we see ourselves as like we're incomplete without these things. And again, God is restoring us back to that original intent where, no, really all Adam and Eve had in the garden. I mean, essentially they had all of creation at their disposal. I mean, I think about that. Like, God's like, "Hey, you want to name these animals?" Like, that would have been the coolest thing ever. Like, right? So here, let me name this thing, whatever. Like, that would have been awesome. Right. But in all of that, the deception was, you need something that God can't provide for you.
Yeah.
And essentially the deception was for them to be God, essentially. Yeah. That's ultimately what this system is deceiving us of. Right. That we are, our ultimate need is that we're naked and that we need something else. And man, I can tell you guys, for me, I just know many times in my life that I've fallen into that trap where I've built mountains of debt because I thought I needed it. And I've got myself into a situation because I just couldn't live without it. But again, our satisfaction, that's the beauty, even in the 21 days of prayer. Some people, I know they do some fasting with this, where you kind of deny yourself some things to remind yourself, I have everything I need, right? Again, God has given me everything I need in my life right now. And sometimes, when Paul says, I know what it means to live in seasons of plenty and seasons of little. Like, again, it's this contentment, but the deception is to not be content.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I noticed too, in that verse, just kind of springboarding off what you were saying, when they were weeping over this destruction, the merchants and the sailors, everybody, they were just devastated. And they were very sorrowful. And it reminded me of what Paul said. There's a worldly sorrow and there's a godly sorrow. And that worldly sorrow leads to death, but the godly sorrow leads to repentance. And just really was like, I think that's a heart check for us. Like, if we're weeping over something that we see as, if we foreclosure or, something that we've built up, this kingdom we've built up, and then it gets devastated, hopefully we're realizing, God is taking taking us through something, or taking something away that he needs to show us, and not just be like, "Oh man, I lost it. Well, I'm going to try to build that up again. I'll try to go back to what I knew or where I was at before."
As you were talking about it, Jason, we'll just throw it out there, Jason, because both of you guys are talking about, how's that work? Does that work all right?
If it's good stuff, it's going to be tougher. I'll tell you that right now.
So, just what you were mentioning, Booher, is you were talking about the merchants, and where my mind went to was just because of what Tucker had said. This is interesting. But what he had said earlier too was just who told you who sold you this bill of goods, right? And so for me, I was thinking even in that spiritual side of things, like just the demons and and Satan and all those principalities and those that have been ruling over for a long time are now seeing the finality of all of this coming to an end, like that's where my mind went to, just like they're going, oh no, everything that we have been doing and working for so long is coming to an end. And we are coming to an end in all of this. And so I just had a whole nother like side of things that was being I was visualizing as we were reading through that. So but that's
kind of that onion peel, right? The onion peel, like we talk about reading the word. It's like, oh man, I've never seen that before. I've never thought of it that way before. And then
and I just even more so, like it continues to go on, like as the celebration continues in the next chapter. But just that idea of like there's the reality, there's the natural that we see, and the supernatural, that's taking place as well. And so anytime there's something natural is taking place, there's something supernatural behind it as well. So anyways,
that's the real reality, isn't it?
Yes, right.
God and what he sees. I mean, we're just catching a glimpse of everything.
Right. It's Jason's coffee cup, right? It's his coffee cup.
That's
the illustration that he uses.
Well, this line, I mean, again, this really hits me hard. Nate, my version's a little different than yours. What verse did you read all the way through 24?
I read through
20.
Read through 20. I haven't read all. I stopped there. We haven't
Well,
gotten to the doom.
I'll save that. I'll save that last piece then, because 24 really hits another point. I don't know if you want to keep reading there, but
I'll go ahead and read. I'll just go ahead and read, and we can wrap this thing up. So verse 21, it says this: Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea, and said, with such violence the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. The music of harpists and musicians, pipers and trumpeters will never be heard in you again. No worker of any trade will ever be found in you again. The sound of a millstone will never be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again. The voice of bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. Whew! Your merchants were the world's important people. By your magic spell, all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood of the prophets and of God's holy people, of all who have been slaughtered on the earth.
Yikes. So complete and total decimation. Like not again, this isn't just like, hey, Babylon's going to fall. This is basically for the purpose of us understanding this. It's going to be ground into complete dust so that nothing remains, no foundation of it, no discussion of it, no hint of it. It's going to be completely eliminated and removed. And I think the reason that I was going to allude to earlier when you were talking about that, verse 24, and in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all who have been slain on earth. So again, with that in mind, there was a warning. There was prophetic warning that this was a problem. There was prophetic warning. There were times in history. It's not just now. This is what we're being reminded. It's not just right now that this has been addressed. These adulterous hearts of ours, these giving ourselves over to thinking we can build walls around our life big enough to insulate us, or thinking that we're God, or knowing that we're naked. Who told you we're naked? There were prophets throughout history, people that God sent to tell us, warn us, show us, help us see it. And essentially what did that system do to those people? It killed them. God said, literally, the people who opposed this system throughout history, the prophets and the saints, this system shed their blood. They're like, just similar to, obviously with Jesus, it was for the sins of all creation, right? Of all mankind. God, that was Jesus' sacrifice. But in the same discussion for all of us, God has sent many prophets throughout time and history to remind us and show us And I mean, I'm thinking about Stephen. So Stephen is being recognized right now in this moment. Stephen, when he was stoned in the public square for preaching the gospel and telling people about the coming of the kingdom, and he was, again, stones were thrown at him. He was a martyr in that moment for trying to bring hope and light and love into the world, the love of Jesus. That essentially is why, again, we need to remember there's justice in this moment. The justice is, again, God has tried and people have lost their lives trying to tell us that this is a dangerous thing. If we're not careful, it's something that literally can take us to our very end. To believe that we can build a system that we can take care of ourselves and insulate our lives in that way. And so that's just important to know that God has been sending warning signs throughout history, through the lives of people, through his word, obviously. So it's not just this moment. It's not just this surprise moment where all these people go, oh my word, I didn't even know this was a thing. No, it's been echoed throughout history. Yeah. Even from the creation story, like we just talked about a minute ago. So
yeah. Even some of that same phrasing here, like the sound of harpists, musicians that never heard again. I mean, we've seen that in the judgments that God spoke through the prophets in Ezekiel and Isaiah, and where that same exact phrasing, really, I mean, down to the wording is there, like that's coming. Just what you were saying before. And then the idea that God is a just, we read that back in a couple chapters ago, where God is a just judge. He's going to give a lot of warning, a lot of evidence. He's not just going to be like, yeah, you blew it. Sorry, I didn't tell you why, but no, he's going to over and over again say, here, this is, warning you, so that he is totally just in his decision when he makes it.
Yeah. You, as we were talking about it goes all the way back, you're talking about to the creation story. And as you were expressing that, like, it goes back, it took me to Cain and Abel, like where the first blood was really shed for the benefit of one of another, right? Like, where you had their opportunity was to give your best to God, and then and because you keep what's best for you and leave, you give whatever the leftover is to God. Like, there was that caused the friction, the first real friction when it came to, like, and we see that it continues on, and just what you're saying, the blood was poured out into out onto the ground, and the ground has been crying out. And you just talked about being ground into dust, like, and man, it's so powerful when you begin to really process, like, from the very beginning, like, we see this struggle has been going on, and it'll go on till the very end, until Christ comes back and really handles business the way it needs to be. And you see all these things. You see the no worker or any trade will be found in you again, and all these things. The one that broke my heart as I'm reading it was the voice of the bridegroom and bride will be never heard in you again. Like, for me, that's whoa. Like, the idea, like, even in all the chaos and craziness and everything that's going on in the world, the atrocities that we see and experience, or that people are experiencing, in the midst of it, at least you still got to hear the voice of God in the midst of it, and you got to hear the voice of his bride. And, like, just that, like, the finality of that finality in itself that's the greatest atrocity that somebody's going to experience, is not to hear God's voice or hear from God's people anymore, like, to be separated from that. Like, that one that, I don't know, that eats me up. Like, that just broke my heart in hearing that.
That's even a parallel back to the book of Malachi. Like, when we've never experienced this in history. So the parallel in Malachi would have been, again, the coming of a savior, and again, believing that this is that Jesus is going to show up on the scene. But then for God to get our attention, for God to show us a type and shadow, even of this moment, he had to reach over and flip the light switch off. And there's that 400-year period between Malachi and the Gospels where you go, wait, how much was talked about? Like, where was God and all that? Like, sometimes, again, the silence was there to get our attention. But this moment it's the ground into dust. Not only will there be no more talking about it, again, it will never need to be silent again. the bridegroom and bride. There's no more speaking needed, no more silence needed. I'm not being silent intentionally. I'm literally turning the light switch off permanently.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is an eye-opening truth, Nate. When you said that, it's definitely something that it speaks of the finality of this moment and the weight of this moment. That I would say today, this is a great litmus test for all of us. Is this Babylon that the Bible speaks of today, is this in my heart right now? And I think the way that we can ask ourselves that question, it comes back to this, is when I start thinking about money and possessions and status and success, and I start thinking about all of those things, the question that I should be asking myself is, where did that come from? Right? Where did that come from? Because the source of that is the key. We say it all the time at church. We tell people, we say, listen, giving or tithing, when you talk about Cain and Abel, the first fruits, seeing that as, why is it important to give God the first fruit of every bit of increase in your life? Well, that's because it is a reflection of what's going on in your heart, right, and who you see as the provider of those things. Right? Because if I have trouble giving God the first, it's because I think I'm the provider. I'm the one that did it. It was my ideas. It was me, my strength, my power. But if I see that it comes from God, if I see God as the provider, God, it's not Babylon is the system, it's God is the provider. If I see that, then I have no trouble giving God what is God's, because I see that he's the source of it, right? So it's a great litmus test for all of us to ask ourselves that question. You know, really, like, who do I see is the provider? Even if I have a scarcity mentality in life, which, believe me, many times in my life, I have had that mentality, that scarcity mentality, like there's not enough. There's not enough. I don't know what I would do. God is saying, isn't it interesting? Malachi was the passage, Malachi 3:10, when he said, this is the one thing I want you to test me in. Test me in this. Test me and I'll show you that I'll open up the windows of heaven. I'll be the provider for your life if you let me be. But if you want to be the provider in your life, you're going to see it's ultimately going to come to an awful, horrible, ruined end. Because that's a great, I don't know, for me, that's just like the pH test, right? Every single day I need to wake up and ask myself that question. Who's the provider? Yeah,
I think that's great. I think looking back at all these patterns that God's shown us with Babylon, it's always the same. They're always setting themselves up in the place of God. I mean, Babylon in the ancient world was one of the wealthiest in the entire world. So we're seeing the same thing play out over and over again. And yet every time beforehand, it was brought to ruin. And here we're just going to see it again. And I thought when you look at Nebuchadnezzar, which we're all familiar with, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, here he'd set up his huge, that golden idol. He'd set up this statue. You got the image of the beast. People recognize something they can see right in front of them. We talked about, Nate, you mentioned, the reality that God, we don't see him, but he's the real deal. But it's so easy for people to look at these riches, this big house, Jason, like you were saying, the big house, the bank account, stock market. We get these visuals of things, and that's what we put our trust in. But we don't walk by just what we see. It's by faith that we walk. And so I echo that.
The thing that popped into my head when you said that is, do you have it or does it have you? Do you have it or does it have you? Again, there's nothing wrong with a great retirement plan and a 401k that is full and set for you to be able to retire well. But the question is, do you have it or does it have you?
Right.
Again, like if it has you, then that means God does not have your heart. Like really, maybe even a better way to say it is, do you have it or does God have it? because that's the thing. Again, there's nothing wrong with the house. There's nothing wrong with the car. There's nothing wrong with the goals. Again, it's all about the root and the heart of the issue. Is you just said, Jason, you nailed it. That's really the question, is all those things, either they have my heart or God has my heart. And they're going to be, isn't it funny? That's why Jesus talked about those things so much. We don't like to study that, but he talked about money and possessions a lot.
Yeah.
Probably second. I don't know. I'm guessing, but I would say a close second to talking about the kingdom and that piece. Money and possessions were right up there because he knew it would be the chief competitor for our hearts.
I'm sure it's more than we want it to be. Talked about it more than we want him to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good.
Well, that's good stuff, man. Good stuff.
It is good stuff. I'll tell you, it's a great test today to be thinking about, even as we pray this out today. Just be thinking about that in your heart today. Like, come on, God, there's only one seat at the highest place in our heart. There's only one seat that God is not going to sit. He has no interest in sitting in the passenger seat in our life. There's only one driver's seat. There's only one throne to be sat on. And so it's a day by day, hour by hour discussion we have to have with ourselves. Am I letting this occupy the space that only God can sit in? Because he deserves the highest place. He is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. And so it's a great question for us to ask ourselves today.
Well, that's how we know we're going in the right direction when we are asking ourselves, when we consistently are asking ourselves those questions. Yeah. Many times we feel like we're filled with, I feel guilty, or I feel, my mind's not in the right spot. But if you're constantly going, okay, am I doing this? Is my heart in the right place? That's good. That's good.
Yes.
That's a good thing. And so the more you ask that question, the more you're probably going to answer that question right. Right. Yes. The answer is going to be the correct answer. Is that the more you ask it, the more you'll learn. We'll learn more and more. That if I keep testing myself and keep asking that question, eventually I'm going to get tired of saying, well, no, my heart's not in the right place. We're eventually going to get tired of saying that, I would think.
Yes. Yeah.
Or tired of lying. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we get tired of lying about it.
Well, we do. Eventually you just get tired of it. It's back to the garden story, but don't you eventually just get tired of feeling like you're naked in that way? Like, who told you you were naked? Who told you were without? Like, I think the appetite changes, Nate, to your point. It changes so much so that you're like, you know what? I am kind of tired of feeling like that.
Yeah.
I'm tired of feeling like I don't have something that I need. And that's the thing. Nothing is going to quench that thirst. Nothing is going to fill that void in our hearts except for a relationship with God. I promise you this. It's not another relationship. If you're married and you're thinking, maybe there's another relationship that could satisfy me, I promise you it's not that. If you're thinking it's another career, or another job, or another degree, or more money, or whatever, if you're thinking those are those things are never going to quench that thirst. Mm-hmm. God made it that way on purpose.
That's right.
There's only one thing that quenches that thirst and that yearning in our heart, and that's Jesus.
Right. Yeah. So, no matter where you are, there'll always be something bigger, faster, shinier, and filled with more pleasure. There always will be. The world continues to create more and more and more. And so that we can continue to chase after more and 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 more. Like that's just how it goes. That's how it is. You're never going to reach the echelon of pleasure or having everything that you could ever want. There's always going to be something more to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Our earthly nature is we're just born that way. And so I think what you guys are saying, recognizing that, if we recognize that and say, this is a thing, this is a reality, that I desire earthly things, but God has set it up to where if I can seek after him, he's going to fill that. I think that question, that recognizing that, is so important. Like when we talk about believers and in Romans, where he says that the spirit and the flesh are always butting heads. But when he said that the flesh cannot, like it hates God, literally. Our earthly nature hates God and cannot be subjected to his ways. That's something we really need to grab a hold of, that fact. That's a fact. And not be so discouraged, because I've experienced a lot of times in my life where I'm like, I just can't seem to get it right. I just keep messing up and falling. And God's saying, look, this is why I've given you my spirit. This is why I sent my son in the first place, to give you hope from that.
Yeah.
And recognizing that is a huge thing.
That's good, buddy.
We should probably wrap this thing up. I think we're running a pretty well.
Hang up you guys all day. I'm in.
This is good. This is good conversation. Great stuff to enter into your weekend with, to be encouraged to be able to, like you said, it's okay. We just understand that we are fallen, and our nature is to go in the opposite direction of God. And so that's why we need to do these things. That's why we need to, these things need to be revealed to us. The nature of Jesus needs to be revealed to us. And the more that we can understand that and grab a hold of that, the better off we're going to be. And so this weekend's going to offer opportunities for you to share the hope that you have, that comes, that I am flawed, but I have a God who is greater than all of that. And so, yeah. So let's do that. So let's spend some time in prayer before we exit out of here. So, Jason, do you want to go ahead and pray?
Sure.
I knew that was
nice.
Yeah.
You knew it was happening, right?
I was like, he's going to do it. I know it. Yeah, he did it. Go for it, Jason.
All right, Jason. Oh, Father, thank you so much. Thank you so much that you have given us hope. We're reading in your word things that are just devastating. Even those of us who have accepted your Son as our Savior, who have cried out to him, and we know the end of the story. It's heavy, and it's a lot. It's just a lot. It's intense. When we see you, the God of all creation, pouring out your wrath, your just judgment, your defending of those who are defenseless, we rejoice, and yet it's a weighty thing. And so, Father, I pray this morning that you would help each one of us to understand your goodness, because you don't stop being good when you're pouring out your wrath. You're consistently and constantly love, and you are endlessly merciful. Thank you so much that you have continued and will continue to give warnings until the very end, till the very last moment. I thank you that you have revealed your word in a way that helps us understand our own struggles and the things that come, and how we can either use them for whatever purpose they are, or we can, unfortunately, we can set them up in our hearts as God. And I pray that you help us to understand the difference, and how we can continue to push those things off that can never, ever fill that void in us, that it's only you that can satisfy, that can bring true joy and a full hope. Father, I pray for all those who are watching this morning, that you would be with us all, that you would continue to open your word. And we just want to say thank you again, and that we love you, and that we praise you in the amazing and matchless name of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Man, that's that good stuff, fellas. Come on, that's that nourishment you need for today, for all of us today. It's a great day to get out there and be thinking about all those things, evaluate our hearts, and just remember this. That in the middle of all of it, just like you just prayed, God is loving, merciful, and wants good things for you today. So let's go after the good things of God together.
Do it.
That's right. Hey, tonight there's a worship night. Don't forget, you're looking for an opportunity to worship with one another. Edgerton campus, 7:00. Get out there and get your worship on. Yeah. And then right. we got in-person church. Go to church. Bring somebody to church. Go to church. Yeah. Whether it's in person, 9/11 in Edgerton or Angola, or church where you are. Great opportunity to gather wherever you are and be directed by where God wants you is best for your life. So, all right, everybody, have an amazing weekend. We'll see you again very soon.